A Merry Christmas to you all on this Christmas morn, or Christmas afternoon, or Christmas evening, or you may be even watching this, I don't know, after Christmas, but this is my Christmas show anyway, and I thought I would go through sort of my subjective take on the history of Christmas. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm currently just outside my studio down by the old Victorian mill. Oh, to be in England at Christmas time. Wherever you look, it's Christmassy. Even though this morning it's pretty sunny. It's a bit nippy. Without a doubt. But anyway, here I am, bidding you all the good tidings of the day on my Christmas show. Last year I did a very opulent Christmas show. It took about a month to make, and I went all over the place. This one's going to be a much cheaper affair. I didn't want to flash, my sort of privilege, because I think everyone's suffering a little bit. So this is a little bit more like, I would say, it's a bit more for your eyes only than Moonraker, if you know what I'm saying. It's all going to be a bit drawn in today. So I'm going to nip in now because I'm getting cold, and we will get on with Andy's history of Christmas. Thank you very much. Peace be upon you all, and I bid you welcome to my history of Christmas. Now, as you can see in my studio, I have managed to fashion together some sort of semi-Christmassy scene, so I am not, so arrogant to place myself in the same position as the Christ child, although I have put this halo around my head, but I don't want you to think that. I'm more of a minor saint, really, like, I don't know, Saint Geoffrey or one of those saints, patron saint of, bicycle repair, something like that. But so, I want to have some respect, so I've given myself the halo. I'm also here with a fair maiden representing the Virgin Mary, perhaps, but she's also crowned in the pagan symbol of renewal, which is also echoed in my Christmas tree here, right? A pagan symbol, Christian symbol, and a pagan and Christian symbol, the law of three. And as you can see atop my Christmas tree, I have my angel, which is Kate Bush. So I've just pulled this together, in the last few minutes, really. But I'm quite impressed with the look. I think it's working, really. There's shafts of light coming in, as though there's some sort of spiritual force at work. And this scene that you're seeing now, I have a great big full-length window in my studio. It's absolutely beautiful. And it would be so easy for me to film just like this. I can look out the window and you get the lovely light. You can drop down the background and make it darker. But it doesn't utilise the lovely brickwork that I have. But I'm thinking of transferring everything that I have over there next year facing this way. So this will be, because it makes it so much easier. Natural light coming in, and then you have to work within the subtle differences of every single day. Because every single day when we get up in the morning and we welcome that day, it's a new day. And a new day is full of hope. And those days roll by, don't they? And before you know it, the seasons have gone all around, and we're back at this point where we feel like we're at the end of the year, but it's not really the end of the year. What it is we are approaching, especially here up in good old England, the darkest time of the year with the shortest daytime hours. I mean, it's almost like being in the north of Norway at the moment. Around about 3:30 it starts going dark, and when I'm getting up at about 7:30, it's pitch black dark. So most of the time it's dark, and it's depressing, and I'm suffering with it, and I'm sure some of you are suffering with it. And this must have been the case for ancient man, mustn't it? They must have suffered in the bleak midwinter. But of course, ancient man didn't have our enlightened scientific view of the world, did they? So they didn't know what the hell was going on. Every single year, they had spring and all the bloody lambs came out and the shoots on the trees, and they'd been holding on to get through the winter, probably hungry, running out of all their bits of fruit and whatever they'd stored, nuts and fruits and bits of meats that had been stored, and they're running out of that, and then they're going, come on, spring. And then they must have got a bit frightened that it wasn't going to come along, mustn't they? And so they would have, in their subjective, stupid, don't know about science ways, they would have done what everybody does. We all do it. It's superstition, really, is you do something that you think you did that made it happen before. We all know this, This is really OCD. Christmas is the bloody traditional response to an ancient man with OCD that think if they did certain things, they could will the animus, the natural nature spirits. Well, nature spirits would be natural, wouldn't they? But they could make sure the nature spirits was on their side, and they would bring about spring. We have so many. Even now, the idea of fairy folk in the forest waking up and running through, waking up all the flowers. We know that. We know because it's deep down in our system. But exactly the same is that in the bleak midwinter, when the frosty winds doth blow, you would have had to do some things. You would have had to store your food up, and you would have got to a point where you'd have worked out where it's the darkest, 21st of December, and you've gone, we're going to have a massive feast. And these feasts would have to last. They would have a lot of meat. Ancient man ate meat, and then they would not eat meat for a long time. And that meat would get them through the protein to grow and get through the winter. So what's causing all this? But it's the thing that breathes very life into our planet. And it's the fact that our planet is not spinning like on an axis like that. It's cocked off like this. Now, I've never understood this, the idea that the Earth's like cocked off on an axis. Why don't they just get the whole universe and just shift it round like that? That's how we're upright. Why don't we make it like that? But they haven't. But apparently, I think it's something to do with the relativity of that axis to the sun. Because as the Earth goes around the sun like this, as it's going round, right, sometimes you're getting a little bit more sun, and sometimes you're getting a little bit left. What's actually happening is this curvature of the Earth is that at some points the sun is shining more directly down on you, and sometimes the light is sort of spread out, when you're over on the other side, you see. And this creates the seasons, and the seasons act like this great big churning mechanism, that creates the sort of rhythmic vibration of the Earth in which life can ebb and flow. It can draw in and it can draw out. And once you have that there, it's an embodiment of the great dialectic, which is continual. And it's always in harmony and in opposition at the same time. These great big mystical rhythms were known to ancient man. Ancient man knew around about 4,000 or 5,000 BC about the precession of the, what do you call it, celestial world above them, which happens over tens of thousands of years. The ancient people who built the pyramids not only made them exactly flat and exactly in line with the longitude and latitude of the Earth, but also positioned them in the same pattern of Sirius, the stars. So we could see that ancient men they were obsessed with the stars, and the stars, looking up at the stars, would have also embodied another dialectic similar to the breathing in and out of the Earth. Is that you would have this idea of heaven and earth, and of course ancient man looked up and saw the little spots of light in the sky and assumed that they were other tribes sat around other campfires out in some sort of other world. These ideas are so strong that they're within us all, really. As human beings on this earth, hunter-gatherers, and then for some reason something happens. What it is, we don't know, but suddenly they're farmers. And being a farmer is a little bit like understanding the counterintuitive, because you're not going to eat the stuff, you're going to put it into the ground and sow it and then wait. So that shows evidence of forethought. Human beings now, they're thinking forward. they can imagine putting the seeds in. Now, for this to happen, they've got to now really make sure that the winter and the summer cycles going around. So within our farming, which goes on for millennia, we would have embedded that all sorts of traditions that would be willing the seasons to turn around, unknowing that they just would anyway. Then I think language starts to develop, and then we get writing. And once we've got writing again, now we can store more information and you can learn from other people. And that communication creates our modern civilization. And it's literally like lighting a fire. And in doing this and being able to store information, this idea of an objective view of the world starts to emerge. Now, objectivity really is God's eye view. We try and see it in a God's eye view. So what's very interesting is these sort of superstitious OCD based traditions that have gone through all of human history, through every different type of human being that didn't understand how science worked, that believed that their will was involved in willing something to be the case, or imagining themselves looking down at themselves from an objective point of view as God. And that God would have echoed into the heavens. So we place God into that dialectic of the stars, right? God is up there and we down here. And we're aware of these great rhythms that are involved. You know, day runs to night. You know, the baby grows into an old person. That you know, females have a womanly cycle that goes around, and that's in tune with the moon, which is going through certain phases. Ancient man would have been aware of these rhythms, and so when technology advanced enough that people could control noisemakers, sound, right? And this is why I am doing this, because this really relates to what we talk about here on this channel, which is music. Once they start to create sound and pitch, and they can control that pitch. Now, the easiest way to do that is with a string. It doesn't take much technology to stretch a string across something, attach it to a soundboard, look at the measurement of the string, and then maybe put a weight on it to create the tension, and then listen to that note. And you can analyze that note. And what ancient man, we're talking about a little bit less ancient, around about the Greek period with old Pythagoras, he starts to do this, and he says there's ratios between these notes, that an octave is vibrating at twice the speed of the note that's below it. And he starts to see all these different harmonics that exist in it. And not just thinking that these ratios that he's discovered that exist within a note, not happy enough to just see that as a scientific sort of exploration. He believes he's uncovering something about the world, which you would, wouldn't you? The universe. Suddenly you're discovering in this sound, and sound's the most ephemeral of all the senses, especially notes. And notes must have always seemed magical. If you're in a forest and the wind was blowing in a certain way and it creates a sort of a whistle or a note, you must think, what is that sound? And in a way, a sound does embody something about the vibrations that are around us. It's like an embodiment of these waves. And a wave is a dialectic, you see. It's an embodiment of that. Now, we see light waves all the time. The closest we would get to that visually would be to see pure bright colours, reds, blues and yellows. And this obviously was utilised in churches with their stained glass windows to create, you know, a myriad of very pure vibrations. The appreciation of pure vibration in human beings is acute. And so Pythagoras and his nutty mates, you know, living on their beans in a cave, believed that they had uncovered the structure of everything. And this was called the music of the spheres. Greek philosophy starts to analyze the world around it within a dialectic. Philosophy is based upon a dialectic. And one dialectic can be seen as the perfect and the imperfect. Plato comes along and he divides the whole world up into the perfect and the imperfect. And our human world here that we live in is imperfect in every single way. We start to get this idea that we're damned, that we live in an imperfect place, and that above us we could look up, and once Aristotle comes along, this idea that we are projecting ourselves up into this perfect space, and we're trying to align ourselves with that. Now, I think there's an element of truth in this. I think we do need to align ourselves with the universe. I think that is fundamentally what is every person's aim, is to try and align yourself with the universe, to be at one with the universe. And that means not walking around in some sort of mindful state, where you don't have any awareness of future or past. It's having an awareness of future or past, but having it in balance with your embodiment of the present, the eternal now. Western culture, however, armed with these ideas of, ratios and perfection and dialectics and, arguments and counter arguments, and also empirical evidence. If you're trying to gather, what a note is with a string and stretch it and measure it, you start to measure the world, and that measurement is also used to utilize, how far things are away. So this is handed down, and it goes across all the cultures. But I think what's embedded in the Greek philosophy really underpins this idea of seeing the world in an enlightened, empirical, rational way. But of course, these ideas also channel their way into religion. Most religions have a perfect and an imperfect, and you're trying to align yourselves with the perfect. And the idea of the perfect comes along. And in Western Europe, that takes over. And the spread of Christianity is done by selling to these pagan types the idea that their Christ is actually some sort of animus spirit that is going to be reborn. He's going to be reborn in the spring, but we're going to celebrate his birth in darkness in the winter. And so the story of Christ and this pagan idea of renewal mixes together in a certain way, doesn't it? And it starts to come through European history. Now, another thing that's very interesting is the fact that if you're Christian, you have to see everybody in a much more individual state than many other religions. You see people as individuals, and they're fallen individuals. And you believe that you shouldn't judge anybody, that you're there to love everybody. This is the message of Christ. And so in the darkness of winter, especially in the olden days, they must have seen so much horror. There must have been so much pain and horror that those that are more privileged and had more must have felt that it would be great to combine this celebration of renewal with your great big feasts, with dishing stuff out to the poor, basically. Let's look after the poor. This idea of looking after the poor, basically a sort of pre-socialist left-wing view of the world, is tied deeply in with Christmas. When the Enlightenment happens, around about 1600, 1700, which is basically, Western Europe, Christendom, going back to Greek empirical and rational thought and starting to utilize that. And what we see in the West within the arts is a move away of music as being a revelation of God and the workings of the universe. It gets moved to being a celebration of the individual. The individual hero emerges, which is a very Greek idea. I've said this a million times on this channel, that Bach as a composer believed he was revealing something about the universe. He was revealing the beauty of God, whereas Beethoven believed that it was him and he was expressing his own worldview. The Enlightenment also, the idea of rationalism starts to get challenged by the artsy-fartsy types. And by the time we get to the 19th century, there is an idea that we should rebalance our view of the world to something which is more subjective and more based upon our own subjective view. And this is linked to a more, redistributive, egalitarian view of the world. And in my country, in the 19th century, there's a couple of things happen. Queen Victoria marries a German. Now, the Germans, they live close to sort of the northern European tribes, and up north, they were suffering with a much harsher winters and much more darkness. When you go back to their ancient rituals, there many years ago, they would have had a shaman, and the shaman would be trying to will, spring to appear. And over in those lands, they had that mushroom. The mushroom, the red and white one, which is always present when you see any sort of woodland folk or pixies or they're always sat on one of them mushrooms. Well, if you eat one of those mushrooms, you hallucinate. And the reindeer that used to live outside these tribal, villages would eat these mushrooms. And they would hallucinate. God knows what the reindeers did. But this is incredible because it plays such an important part in our Christmas. At some point, these ancient Germanic types, Northern European types, whoever they are, up in Norway or wherever it was, where we associate Christmas to be, up in those countries. At some point, I think they may have drank the reindeer's urine, and then the active agent that creates the hallucinations would still have an effect. And this Germanic tradition is imported into our country through Queen Victoria that had married a German. So when we look at Father Christmas, who's a Spanish saint that was doing a bit of redistributive socialism, but you take him, but you transfer him into this sort of wintry spirit of excess and winter, like in Scrooge, the ghost of Christmas Present. Imagine that bloke with the big beard. But then you embody him in the colours of that allegoric, or whatever. I can never say that word. I didn't want to say allegoric mushroom, red and white. Red and white becomes important. Reindeers come important. Flying reindeers come important. So you can see, once Queen Victoria's with the old German Albert, old Prince Albert, he brought a whole bunch of host of things he did to our country. Christmas and certain piercings that you might have hidden within your trousers, which will keep a larger contingent of the human body in a neat fashion. That's all I'm saying. He brought all sorts of things to this country. The Christmas tree, obviously, goes back to some ancient pagan ritual where you get a bit of greenery that's still out there, even though you got the snow and ice. You can find this bit of greenery and you bring it into your little tribal home and you decorate it with light, and you start to try and bring as much light as you can in. We're also all about bringing light in. These are all pagan ideas. But also, at the back end of this sort of romantic period where everyone's getting a lot more existentialist and, looking at nature and being at awe at the sublime of nature, all that type of thing, and wandering around on mountains and, looking at storms and being frightened but seeing the beauty at the same time, all that sort of thing that's going on with the old romantics, being like Lord Byron, this idea of the Christ-like figure is now this sort of the artists themselves embodies a sort of Christ-like sacrifice, which is why I've stuck this behind me head. I'm doing it today. Thank you so much. I am the wise YouTuber, proffering knowledge and wisdom. I'm not really. I'm just riffing on Christmas. Now, perhaps the greatest riff on Christmas was old Charles Dickens, wasn't it? With the Christmas Carol, which I believe is the greatest story ever. It's better than even the stories in the Bible. The Christmas Carol is just wedged and wodged with so much wisdom. Absolutely so much wisdom. And it takes this dialectic, it breaks it into the law of three. We have the idea of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future. Within that, we have the law of three, and we have past and future. We have all of that going on in the middle of winter. We have the poor person there. We have the rich one there. He has to be changed, and he's changed by examining the trauma. It's a very modern story. He examines the trauma of his past and shows how that will project into the future. And then by facing death, right, confronting death, right, the memento mori of that, he wakes up a changed man and he is transformed. The transformation of Christ is now embodied on old Scrooge, and he's transformed into a better person that then redistributes wealth. It sort of brings in all these Christmas ideas together. Now, it's a credible story, and every little bit of it Every little bit of that story resonates. And it doesn't matter who does it. The Muppets do it, or Jim Carrey as a sort of CGI Scrooge, whoever does it, right? Maybe it's, who did it? Albert Finney, and he's having a bit of a sing-along. Of course, it could be the greatest Scrooge of all Scrooges, Alistair Sim. But whoever one does it, we all know the story, and even if they change the story, an element of truth comes through. It's like esoteric truth. It can't be changed. It always communicates something to us. It really does communicate for me what Christmas is about, in both its positive and negative aspects. So we now go to the 20th century. You know, the late Victorian era replaces, you know, the hell of, you know, a subsistent farmer in the winter to the hell of being a working class person living with a huge family because your kids die at a rate that you've got to try and make sure you've got enough to get through, working in a dark factory. And that is the backdrop to which A Christmas Carol is written. Of course, in relative terms, these dark British factories that, you know, treated people almost like, you know, slaves within that, was eking out certain zones of free expression to normal people. Of course, the rich had already been able to free express themselves, but the poor suddenly, they can get their whole hand on pamphlets, maybe even a book or two. They can read stories. This is why Charles Dickens is so big, because normal people are reading it. You get a weekend. On the weekend, you go to church and you see your friends in church. And the preacher tells you all sorts of things about damnation, but you also see your life turning around on this circle, because many of the events throughout the year are celebrated by the church, and that gives you the structure of your life. And suddenly within that, within the singing of songs and the listening of stories and the looking at the beautiful artwork and seeing the light flooding in through the stained glass windows, being able to read the Bible yourself and being able to also read these Christmas stories that are coming out, all these things, being able to explore the darker aspects that emerge in the 19th century, the idea of Jekyll and Hyde, and, you know, and the stories of Poe, you know, all this sort of darkness is emerged, and that's also tied in. There's always a ghost story attached to Christmas, and I think the 19th century really plays a part, and we get the importation of this idea of Father Christmas. Coca-Cola, this sort of cocaine-based drink that's sweeping America, ties itself to Christmas, borrows those colours, sticks them onto the sort of father of Christmas, who was originally green. He was basically the green man, wasn't he? And before you know, you got Father Christmas, and this sort of story comes down, and it gets taken up by this sort of modernist, Henry Ford-driven, you know, mechanistic cog in the machine era that emerges in the early 20th century. We're all a cog in the machine, and there's a cog in the machine. We get these little moments where we can shine, and when we shine, the money that we've got, that little bit of money we've got, we need to go out and turn the capitalist system. We have to take that lever that keeps it churning, because in the winter, everybody's used to just drawing it all in. Everyone's drawing it all in. They don't want to go out. They got to try and keep warm. They're storing their food. There's this big celebration. How can we utilize the celebration to turn the capitalist wheel? And this is the great 20th century phenomenon, I think, with Christmas, is that obviously Christmas is there because it turns the capitalist wheel. There are companies that exist that only exist because of Christmas. They sit there waiting for Christmas to happen. You know, they may sell an odd product throughout the year. Here in the United Kingdom, for example, when I was a kid, there was a tin of sweets called Quality Streets. Quality Street, they're waiting for Christmas to happen. You know, because everybody has to buy a tin of Quality Street, and they're expensive. Now, this Christmas, when you buy your tin of Quality Street and you open it, you will notice that there's less chocolates in there, and the chocolates that are in there will have less chocolate on them, but they will cost more. This year, the capitalist wheel that will be churned, we will be getting a lot less for our money. All the turkey farmers that are having to pay more expensive bills and transport and all the cost of living that's gone up through this year, And with all those turkeys sat there in their little sheds waiting to be slaughtered and sent out, those turkeys are going to be more expensive. Everything that's at Christmas, all that stuff that you have to buy, all that stuff when normal people who are trying to get by and just survive suddenly start forking out hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, right? That is what Christmas has become, and we know it, right? And the driver to make us spend that money, the driver to get us to indulge in this capitalism and keep that capitalist world going, bizarrely, is this sort of socialist idea that we shouldn't be a Scrooge and we should be redistributing our wealth. We need to redistribute our wealth to everybody else. When I had little kids, I would go out and spend hundreds, if not thousands of pounds on plastic toys, which I know by the next Christmas would have been broken and destroyed by my kids, and I would have them all broken and destroyed in plastic bags, which I would then take up the tip for them to be poured into landfill. I knew that's what I was doing, and I used to say to my family, why don't we just go on holiday? Yeah, that'd be a good idea, but we've still got to have Christmas. Well, no, we go on holiday, we just sit there and be on holiday and relax, but there'd be no Christmas presents. Well, we need that. Yeah, I can't pay for the holiday and there'd be no presents. Oh, no. Oh, no, you're going to have to go out, Andy, and spend a whole bunch of money on a bunch of plastic stuff that you're going to be sticking in the tip next year. Can you go without things for your own business and the own, your musical, self-centered musical things that you do? Can you go without that to buy plastic stuff for the kids? I've got a list of plastic stuff. And there's other kids we know that we don't know very well, but we've got to buy plastic stuff for them. Yeah, loads of it. Can you go and do that? If you can't do that, can you just draw huge wadges of money out, stick it in cards to send to people that you don't know? So as I get into the second half of this video, you can see I've given this potted history and I've tried to show you where some of these ideas come from. But Christmas has really been taken up by the capitalist West. And now I'm not an anti-capitalist. And I'm pretty sure without Christmas, we might find that we would have a great big slump. It has to be there. It has to be there to turn the big cog. It has to be there to turn the cog of capitalism. And so here we are. I'm 57. Though this is my 58th Christmas. And once I finish this video, I will be jumping in my car and going and buying a whole bunch of stuff. I have tried to steer my kids on getting stuff which will actually be useful for them, which will actually make their lives more pleasant and happier. Things like maybe, I won't go into what my kids have had, but it's not toys because they've got a bit older now. I'm trying to buy them stuff that I can't normally go and afford because we're trying to keep things going. A luxury. What do you appreciate in life? When you get old, you don't get much, do you? But the things you do get, it makes it a little bit better. I mean, my socks and underpants are looking threadbare at the moment, I have to say. I'm waiting for those to come in. A new injection of underwear is going to be very grateful. All the aftershaves I've had, they've run out. So I'm a very smelly man. You can't tell this because you're watching me on the internet. But if you're in here, you go, I didn't expect Andy to smell so... Well, it smells like he's got a lot of old socks and underpants on the go, which I have. And I can't cover it up with Sauvage or whatever Johnny Depp sprays all over himself. I always imagine Johnny Depp doesn't smell that great nowadays. He did when he was younger, I imagine, but not now. Not with all the fags and boozing and people doing poos in his bed. We moved into the comedy bit of the video now. So yeah, I need a bit of aftershave. I'll be happy, a few cans of underarm spray, I suppose. Maybe someone might get me a tin of shortbread. I've got my Scottish scarf on just to hint at that. I'll need some shortbread at some point, won't I? This is what a bloke might get. So you might get a tin of shortbread. What might I get as well? Not much, really. It's definitely redistributive socialism. I know I'm making the money and I'm spending the money. And I know I'm not going to get anything back. I don't mind that. I'm a grown-up. I can live with it. I can live with it. So... that's where we are at the moment. That's what Christmas is. Now, this video, I think, will hopefully act as a little bit of a tonic for those of you of a certain age like me who have decided to stick this on Christmas Day. You're sat there. Maybe you've forked out your money. Maybe your kids are gone. And so you've had to have them arrive with their little kids. And we don't want that. It's nice to see them, isn't it? But to be honest... what's better? All your family coming round and trying to eat a Christmas dinner, or just sitting down with a little bit of shortbread perhaps and a cup of tea and watching Where Eagles Dare? Which one would you rather be doing? Broadsword to daddy boy, broadsword to daddy boy, you know. Good evening to you. I can't wait to see. I saw my brother yesterday. I am so un-Christmassy in reality. I won't see my family over Christmas. I might see my mum, but I won't see my brother. But I did see him yesterday. And we had a great afternoon talking about Where Eagles Dare in great depth. And really getting into Darren Nesbitt and his excellent acting in that film. And I got to be honest, the thought of, Darren Nesbitt, chatting to Ingrid Pitt, leaning forward, good night, dear. Turn into the great Eastwood, Burton, Pitt, Where Eagles Dare. They better have it. They don't need to have it on at Christmas. That was always a fun, wasn't it? When you were younger. What's on telly? What they got on Christmas Day? Jaws 2. Brilliant. Christmas is sorted. Yeah, those were simpler times, weren't they? Here in the UK, we used to have a thing called the Radio Times. It was, at Christmas, it would be twice as big. And the Radio Times would tell you what was going to be on the television. And you'd go out and get it. That would be, Christmas is coming, because you go, Mom, have you got the bumper Radio Times? Yeah, I got it today. Oh, my God, give it here. And you get your highlighting pen, you're going through it. Oh, my God, that's brilliant. Oh, God, they've got this on. Generation Grain Christmas Special. We're going to have to watch that. They got a documentary about cheese making in Dorset. I don't think I'll watch that one. Oh, they got some good films on. What's the James Bond? They got the latest James Bond. And back then, the latest James Bond was the one a few years back. Because you had to wait, didn't you? Film was on in the cinema. You had to wait 4 years before it came on the telly. So it was like bloody a big thing. It's a big thing when these films came out. And you'd sit there and watch them. All the jokes were a little bit out of date with the old James Bond. But it didn't matter. So... television was a big thing for me at Christmas. That was the main thing I enjoyed. But when I got up in the morning as a youngster, it didn't matter how much my mum and dad spent. I used to wake up so excited. It was so exciting. And the way it's played out for kids, this idea that some bloke's going to break into your house in the middle of the night, some fat old bloke, and dump a bunch of presents. That bit is usually quite terrifying for kids. My brother used to get so frightened, he'd always throw up. So Christmas morning was always him thrown up in his bed, and that had to be cleaned up. But at least Mum and Dad got up because of that, because they always wanted to have a lie in. We're there 5 o'clock in the morning. Come on, Mum and Dad, come on. No, we'll do it at 7 o'clock, kids. No. No. You go and, can we open our presents now? No, we want to watch you open. Oh, come on, Mum and Dad, it's not yours, it's for us, we're the kids. And then suddenly, whack, all over the bed. The brother's been sick, Mum. Oh, God, so she gets out of bed, cleans it all up, cleans my brother up, gets the sheets off the beds, all this stuff's going on. I had to stop the video, didn't I? Because the kids are ringing up about bloody Christmas. Right? It is what it's like. I'm trying to work and do my YouTube videos, and my kids are ringing up about Christmas. I'd already organised this with them. I hate Christmas, right? So this is as we get into the next part of this Christmas show. Those of you of a certain age sat there, and that promise, if you go back, as I was trying to describe, that promise of Christmas morning, once you've all got all the excitement of it, it didn't matter what your parents had got you. They could have got you your own spaceship, couldn't they? I did. I always had a great feeling of emptiness once it was all done. I'd get my presents together and I'd organise them so I could see them all, and I'd look at them all and go, 2 annuals, set of felt tips, Brazil nuts in a red thing. Yeah, that's quite good. I got that. And then I got a racing car. That's really good. I got a couple of games, Mousetrap. Yeah, I don't mind that. And then I've got Scalextric. Scalextric is really good, but we can't set it up at the moment. Dad doesn't want to set it up, but he will. Maybe I'll go and nag Dad again about setting up the Scalextric. Dad, do you want to set the Scalextric up? All right, then I'll have a go at it. So then you're into that. And that, for some reason, once your dad's involved with it, he's now setting that Scalextric up. And so you think you got something to do, and you get it sorted out and it's all set up, and then you put the racing car on the Scalextric and you pull the lever and it shoots off across the road. So you go and get the racing car and you put it on and you pull the lever and it shoots off, and then you realise it requires skill. And the idea that you were going to spend Christmas Day, you know, racing around on this thing, it's going to happen. Because you've got to learn how to bloody pull that trigger in a light mode and stop it, so when you get to the corners, and you know your mum and dad couldn't afford the big one, so the track's not that long, so you get around it with him in about 4 seconds, and there's too many bends. Oh, I wish it had some long straight bits so it could really go fast. No, you've got to drive around carefully. Oh, this seems like work now. Oh, that was the big present as well. You know, maybe you got the Le Mans scale electrics. You can switch the lights off, you know, and just have the headlights on. You know, that's quite good. So you do that. You know, it's dark, close all the curtains. Your mum's shouting at you because she's trying to do the Christmas dinner. Dad's really involved in it, as dads are. Mum's in the kitchen, and then she says, right, it's going to have Christmas dinner now. Can you clear the table at Sky Electrics? No, Mum, we want to do it, you know. And then she's like, oi, Dad, tell the kids they got to... They go, no, I'm enjoying myself now. And then a row would emerge between my mum and dad about the Christmas dinner. And my mum would go, why are you all having fun? And why, you know, whereas I'm slaving in the kitchen. And then I'd sat there, and so you clear all that up, you wait for your dinner to come, and you look at your little pile of stuffs, maybe you read your, you know, whatever Jimmy Will Fix It album that you've got, you know, so reading that, you know, reading facts about Jimmy Savile. None of the facts that you really need to know to keep yourself safe, mind you. So I have got embodied in me this sort of very negative, it goes right back to my childhood. I've never liked Christmas. And now I'm old, I hate it. So if you're sat there watching this video, maybe your family's come around at some point, maybe you've got rid of them, because nobody wants that to happen, do they? Nobody wants their family around with eating Christmas dinner, getting on. You know, because most people don't get on, and they get on your nerves, even if they're your own kids. Maybe they got their husbands a pain in the arse. Maybe you're a pain in the arse. People get drunk, you know, all these types of things. And then if you haven't got that, even worse, if you're like someone who's ended up, and it's fate, maybe... You know, you're on your own at the moment, you know, and you feel a bit depressed. Most people are watching that. Maybe this is like, you know, I've come round to visit you on Christmas Day and I'm chatting to you. Maybe I'm lifting your spirits. When I tell you this, I will lift your spirits because you're the lucky one. You can have your shortbread. You can sit there and watch Where Eagles Dare. Nobody's going to come round and make you play charades or do anything like that you don't want to do. Make you go for a walk. Oh, we've had our dinner. Let's go for a Christmas walk. I don't want to go for a Christmas walk. That's the last thing I want to do. What do you want to do? I want to do what I want to do. Play the guitar, play the drums, listen to me records like I did when I was 15 years old. Hasn't shifted, hasn't changed. That's me. So you probably don't realise how lucky you are, but then you're on your own and nobody wants to be on your own. Nobody does, do they? Because once you're on your own, you know chaos is not very far away if you're on your own. You know that, don't you? As you get older, sat in that house on your own, you could fall over, couldn't you? Break your leg. What would happen? It wouldn't be like me breaking my leg. One of my kids would come up and ring the ambulance. Not you. If you can't get to your phone. Maybe you're old and you've got one of them buttons you can press. You know? What are they going to do? Some faceless person sending somebody round to help. What if it doesn't work? Well, what if you ain't got one of those buttons? You're going to sit there. You know? But you got your cat, haven't you? You've got your lovely cat to keep you company. But that cat doesn't care about you, does it? It doesn't care about you. Once you're lying there and you can't move and you've been there for 4 or 5 days, so the cat's locked in and it's crapped all over you, what's it going to do to survive? That cat's going to eat you. He's going to take a chunk out of your cheek. He won't care. That's your end. That's your chaotic end. Starving to death and being eaten very slowly by some domestic cat. And at some point when somebody smells this smell coming out of the room, they're going to come in and break the door down and find you lying there, all emancipated with half your face missing. That's why you don't like being on your own. But at the moment, you don't want to worry about that because, you know, at least you can do what you want to do. This is the great thing about life. The darkness, that darkness that exists in the deep, bleak midwinter. It's an embodiment of chaos. It's the world running down. And we come to the final part of my video. Tomorrow on Boxing Day, I'm going to be evaluating the musical year, much more of a normal thing that a normal music YouTuber will do. I'll go through and do that. But the way I saw it, I thought, I want to do a Christmas Day video, you know, because I have this huge idea of my own self-importance. So here I want to sit looking like some sort of minor saint, St. Geoffrey, the patron saint of bicycle repair. I want to sit there like that, but also feel like I'm like the Queen. Now, the Queen's no longer with us. So we're going to have Charles bloody woke, multicultural, multidimensional bloody Christmas message. I've never watched one of them. I'm a very traditional man in a way. I'm a very progressive man when it comes to creativity. But I don't like the new royal family. They've shown themselves up. All that's gone. The whole thing's gone. Right, cost of living's gone up. We got no decent politicians anymore. The whole thing's for Western democracy's falling to bits. Here I am trying to champion it, but if you even bring it up, people will hate you. They'll hate you. They just hate it. All they want me to do is talk about Genesis or something like that. But it's been a crap year, hasn't it? Right, is it going to be any better than next year? Of course it isn't. The black tentacles of chaos are enveloping us all. If you aren't one of those people living on your own that might fall over and break your leg and end up, starving to death while the cat eats your face, maybe there's something there. Maybe I've got a family, but I tell you, it's going to fall through the floor. It's doom. I'm like the one out of Dad's Army. My favourite one. He was always my favourite one, the Scottish one. We're doomed. We are doomed. Is this a positive Christmas message? Is it? As I sit here, is this a positive Christmas message, really? No. I hate Christmas. All I can say, if you're watching this, I'll put it, so in the UK it comes out sort of in the afternoon around about Christmas, probably 4 o'clock I'll have it come out in the UK. I don't know what that'll be for everybody. I think America's when you get in the morning. But all I'm saying is, this nearly over. You've got through it. You've got through it. Boxing Day tomorrow. I always enjoyed Boxing Day more. If you've got a bit of food left over, you can make yourself a turkey and stuffing sandwich. They're always nicer than having the full works, isn't it? Sit down, then you got that funny period, that week, the non-week that just goes on and you don't know what day it is, Then you get up to New Year's Eve. I hate New Year's Eve. I hate it. So what I do on New Year's Eve, believe it or not, is I try, most nights I'm awake at midnight working, but on New Year's Eve I try and get asleep so I can miss out that New Year's. I hate it when you count down it. I am the worst curmudgeon, right? I am suffering my way through this holiday at the moment. Once you get past New Year's Day and then you get back to normal, a few weeks pass by and before you know it, you might see the lovely shoots of spring emerging, and I love that time of year. And then the clocks change here in the UK and you get a little bit more light, and before you know it, you've got a lovely spring day, and that's the bit I love when I'm out seeing, and the world and nature's there for me to appreciate. It will come forth, and that's the thing, isn't it? Us OCD riddled, superstitious, irrational human beings, we find it hard to place our faith in the things that really ensure our happiness in the future. And it's not hoping that the bloody shoots of spring will spring. We don't have to pray to a stupid green, symbol of future fertility or whatever it is, like her sat there being all motherly. We don't have to do that. It will happen. Kids will be born. Lambs will spring. Daffodils will come out. It will happen. We don't have to worry about it, So why isn't that? Why are we not filled with solace? Because they're not really our worries, are they? We live in a capitalist society. We need that money to keep going. And it seems to be falling apart. How do we stop it from falling apart? Well, I believe that what you need to do is firstly respect truth. So next year, and this is my Christmas message now, I hope that we can all start to learn. And I've learned this year. I've learned this year. This is something I've come out of. People with other opinions, you need them. You need them. They're the other side of that dialectic. Stop being angry with people with other opinions. See them as your fellow man. Just go, they think the world's different to me. And if they meet you with anger, then do the Christmas thing, the Christmas spirit of coming to them with love and listen to what they say. If you're right, if your opinion is right, you don't need to shout it at someone. Just keep it there and know, you believe in what you believe, but keep your mind open. So the way to respect truth, which is the one half of the dialectic. My idea of wisdom is there's this dialectic. You have to respect truth. That's one side of it. Respect truth. And actually the way we meet that, I think, is by approaching everybody with love. And if we open our arms and we all start to work together, our politics will move back to the centre, and that is totally what we need. We need socialism, leftism when we need it. We need identity dogma when we need it. We need free market capitalism when we need it. We need to negotiate our way through this. And the respect for truth is the root of the Enlightenment, and all the comforts and all the loveliness that Christmas celebrate has really come from Enlightenment thinking and being able to carve out that space where we can express ourselves. The other half of the wisdom dialectic for me is the appreciation of beauty. Now, beauty is the embodiment of nature, and it's the expression of nature in human terms. That's why we don't need to worry about AI. Human beings invent processes that embody into the world for the future how they feel about the present. That is the appreciation of beauty. Art can be about ugliness, it can be about horror, danger, but it's still negotiating what beauty is. Always. And again, the appreciation of beauty comes from realizing that everything is full of love. So I end this video on Christmas Day with a message of love. You can't make people love you. All you can do is go out and love people and love the universe and love everything, love and acceptance of everything around you. And with that, whatever God you believe in or lack of God, let us place our faith in that for next year. And that becomes my Christmas message. See, I've turned it around now. And so I bid you a happy Christmas and a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And I hope that you will be filled with love and be able to go out and fill the rest of the world with love. And if we all go into the new year with that in mind, if everybody could do that, the world would be a better place. How you do that, I don't know. But I am here to continue the discussion, because fundamentally, that is what we're discussing here. Thank you all. And go and get yourself a mince pie or maybe some shortbread. And I'll see you tomorrow to evaluate the year.